Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Edge and Flow podcast. This is TJ Schwartz. I'm sitting here with Lucas Burnley. Not actually sitting here with you, but
Close
4
enough.
hours from you. Wonderful technology helping us out. But we're going to talk more about what we always talk about, which is knife making and the giant kaleidoscope of topics that kind of are born out of knife making talks.
Yeah. The ecosystem.
Yeah.
Man, it's expansive.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Holidays are coming up, so I know we're always patchy, but we may also continue to be patchy through the holidays with the publishing of episodes.
True.
But we'll
see.
there.
I think we got 2 more in us for this year. I really want to do a year in review kind of recap, carrying into a fresh start in 2024 and like what we're excited about. But I have something that I've kind of been like chomping at the bit to talk about. Consider this a unpaid advertisement for the CAD course. A little bit of backstory. So I had surgery on my ankle and had some screws removed. That means that I've been in a boot, walking boot for the last 2 weeks. And the first week of that basically was like not load bearing. You had just released the CAD course and I had been kind of like here and there watching the videos. I decided that the way to make the most use of my time was to do just like a real focused deep dive. My relationship with Fusion 360 has been tumultuous. I think I'm one of like the first knife maker. I don't know that this is true, but this just like what I saw on social media and like when I see people talking about it, I think I was one of the first knife makers to kind of like stumble across Fusion 360. And for some reason, it instantly was attractive to me. The issue is that was 5 years ago. And I am just now at a point with, I think, like just the culmination of a few situations that it actually is now a tool in my toolbox. And so I figured I wanted to do 2 things. I wanted to like give you feedback on how I'm using the course and like where the value is, and also a couple things I'd like to see. I also kind of just want your feedback to like story wise, like, did I bring Fusion to you?
I don't remember what brought Fusion into my sphere of influence. Obviously, I've been a SolidWorks guy for a long time. I did download it a long time ago, though. It might have been like 7 years ago. But I also never used it.
Yep.
And so it's only the last 36 months, basically, that I've started using Fusion heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that maybe that is the case. Like, your reason for not using Fusion initially was you had a software that essentially did a similar thing that you had a level of mastery with. I would guess that there are a lot of makers that, like me, had kind of a piece together CAD CAM skill set, right? It's not like school based. You learned it from a friend. You have like, you know, you're making it work. The jump to Fusion 360, I think for a lot of us was vast. I know like pretty early on, I had talked to a few guys that were like, oh yeah, like I'm using it for like modeling and CAM, but like I can't draw in it. Now I understand why, which is constraints. If you are coming from a system that is not constraint based, it's like essentially trying to do things in a completely different language. At least that was my experience. In SolidWorks, and I have no familiarity with SolidWorks, it is constraint based, like similar to that, or heavily uses constraints.
Yeah, as far as what you're referring to being like the sketches and the way that the lines are laid out, it's basically the same. There's a few little nuances, but like I feel like Fusion definitely looked over SolidWorks' shoulder when they were doing some development. I know Autodesk has a storied history, so it's probably goes both ways, but yeah, they're very similar. Very
Right.
similar.
Well, and when Fusion like first came out, I mean it because Autodesk has Inventor, right?
Yeah, and I don't quote me on this, but Autodesk used to have almost complete control over the 3D CAD game, like parametric modeling,
Right.
and SolidWorks was the new kid on the block, like in the 2000s. I don't know exactly when the transition happened, but in 2012, when I was studying SolidWorks in college, they were telling me that they had just seen SolidWorks in industry take over the reins from Autodesk. And so this is like more of a comeback story from Autodesk
Oh,
that they developed
interesting.
Fusion. Yeah. So it's like season 2 of Autodesk. It's interesting for sure.
Strategically, it's a really interesting move to me because when I saw it, I was like, okay, the price point was like just insane. I mean, and I think it's like if you make under $100,000 a year, I think you can still get a full seat for free.
Hmm.
That's a pretty
Yeah.
heavy discount from like anything, right?
Hmm.
It's free. But what I saw was that it was that shift from like large scale manufacturing and engineering into what we're essentially doing.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed. I mean, that's what it seemed like the software was designed for from the get go.
Yeah.
It was like when Ducati released the Scrambler.
Yeah.
It's like,
And it's really they're tearing a page out of Adobe's book. If
mhm,
you have been like a videographer or a Photoshop guy before, you remember the days not very long ago, like 5 years ago, where you had to buy Photoshop for like $600 and you just
mhm,
got like the current version. And it was the same for all the Adobe apps. And then they did, Adobe Cloud, the Adobe Cloud base, and now it's all subscription. And so it feels like you're paying a lot less. I feel like
right.
eventually with those, you eventually pay more. But Fusion, it's just kind of the future of software.
Sure. I
Is
guess like, yeah, there's like an amortization schedule. Like there's a
yeah,
point where you've paid more than you would for a seat, but you're
yeah,
also on the most current
exactly,
updates and everything else.
yeah.
I don't know.
Fusion.
That's a good point too. What were you going to say about
I was
Fusion?
just going to say, in the case of Fusion versus Adobe, Fusion is going to be cheaper than SolidWorks. Full stop. End of story. No matter
Yeah.
how long you pay for it, it's going to be
Right.
cheaper.
Right. Because
Yeah,
you're not paying like, yeah, you're not paying like your update fees and
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
Um, it's interesting, like looking at it from just like a business culture standpoint, where like tying it into Adobe, the shifts like are there are some that are like generational shifts where it's automatically like they're not pitching it to probably Boeing.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like who's probably using SolidWorks.
yeah,
You know, it's like slowly it like rolled out at a time where everyone's using social media, cloud base is like getting more popular. Even to take a like you said, like take a page out of Adobe's book, I think the awareness that like this type of engineering is maybe like also tied into closer to like photography, Photoshop,
yeah,
graphic design, whatever. I think it's just an interesting like amalgamation for me.
yeah. Hmm.
Right. Okay. So I came to you and like, guys, a couple years ago now, and just basically asked you to tutor me in Fusion 360, which at that point you were not using, right?
Hmm. Yeah, just beginning
And
barely.
and that was kind of like where that was where I started to finally at least make like a little bit of uh like headway with it. But what was it basically we did similar to what you're doing in the CAD course, except I took notes the whole time. And so the first big paradigm shift for me was like, I think since we had done that, I had forced myself to do a couple of projects, but like simple, like the turn. The turn was the first knife that I actually fully designed inside of Fusion 360. And I realize now that there were still issues with the way that I created the drawings and the model, right? Just from like a process standpoint.
Hmm.
So fast forward to the like 2 weeks ago, I sit down and the first thing I do is I just binge all of the videos.
Hmm.
Okay. Like first pass. And then what I do is pull up dual screen, and I basically just start aping your process. I did something kind of weird, which was I didn't want to focus on anything that I had to design. So I pulled in an old model from like an old Rhino file. This is like the first spent probably like 3 or 4 days modeling it, sent it to you, and then instantly realized that it was like trash.
If you're gonna go the route of like learning a new program, I highly recommend going blank canvas. Even if it's not a finished product goal that you're shooting for, just like, because I have found like what you just, especially when you're transferring something from a different software, like the odds of calamity ensuing and like just process errors is just super difficult.
I knew it going in, but again, it wasn't. I needed to the way that my brain works. I needed to compartmentalize. If I was trying to design something, I know that I would have been frustrated because I wasn't flowing in like the creative design aspect or the productive like engineering aspect of it, right? And to explain like what happened, basically brought in an old Rhino model. There were splines in it. And so Fusion picked it up, but it wasn't something that was like controllable. Instead of like arcs, it was spline segments. Okay. So at the end of that, I basically did the same thing, and I did it. I think I've done it like 3 or 4 times now. And I actually did do another model that I brought in and tweaked again, but purely because I wanted to force myself to understand where the flaws were and how to correct them. So the process was I did one knife, I modeled, that was the strafe, didn't work out right, trashed it. Did a completely new design, but based on the Kihon. So I did it basically a Kihon fixed blade. I brought the Kihon fixed blade drawing into Fusion, but only as a sketch, like an initial, like a baseline sketch. At the end of that project, I went and I ran 3D prints, and I think I sent you a message right away. And it's like, it literally feels like somebody opened like a magic portal in front of me.
It's a cool feeling.
I don't know how to explain it. And like somebody's going to hear this and they're going to get it because the paradigm shift. I don't know like how many X improvement this is to the process. And if you don't have a process that is like multi-stage where you're like, okay, I'm going to draw in Rhino, and then I'm going to like carry this into like my CAM software, and then, I need to make a change and I'm going to go back. It feels like magic. So
it is magic.
It kind of is magic. Yeah. Well, and it's crazy because this ties into something else for me, which like over the last couple of years I've dealt with, which is around learning and like the executive function issues that I have. There's a lot of things that aren't linear. So the reality is over the course of time that I've wanted to learn Fusion, I've learned like bits and pieces. I could just never put them together enough to like bridge the gap. It was like everything just snapped into place. It was wild.
That's amazing. Yeah, you were sending me updates and I could see the rate of development that you were going through. It looked impressive. And I think it's cool that you had, I mean, obviously it sucks that you were in a boot, but it's kind of cool when you have a constraint in the real world like that just kind of forces you to be focused on something that otherwise seems less important than the things you're doing.
Yeah.
It's a great state of mind to be in. So glad it worked for you.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, and you think like, I mean, that's a lot of that's not setbacks, but if you're wanting to advance something, the things that are urgent, they're going to affect the things that are important unless you just keep like a very consistent process of being like allowing yourself to still focus on things that are important over a consistent timeline while dealing with emergent, events.
Yeah.
That's human nature. Like the emergency is always going to be the most important thing on your plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's just like going like as a maker and having gone through like different iterations from like, doing everything by hand without enough tooling, moving into CNC, kind of like making do with processes.
Mm-hmm.
Processes. This is the first thing in a long time where it actually makes me feel like a better designer.
Cool.
Like I could make knives. I can design knives. It doesn't mean that I'm like, I guess it doesn't change that like basic fact.
Mm-hmm.
But with the way that I am now able to design, I think it opens a lot of paths that either I wouldn't have seen, pursued, or been able to do with like the same efficiency. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't know why I feel like it's such a big paradigm shift.
I think part of it is obviously sketching like with a pencil and paper is the fastest way to get ideas down.
Right.
But you're like, when you put a sketch on paper, it doesn't feel like real. It doesn't feel like an actual physical piece of success. At least doesn't to me quite so much.
Yeah.
It's like that the work, it hasn't even begun yet when you have a sketch that you like, for me. And it seems like with CAD, because you now have a 3D model, and particularly either 3D print or like a laser cut blank, it's like you can see that this thing could be water jet. It could be CNC machined. It's like the physical existence of it happens so much quicker after you've had the idea. Because it's like, because I design in CAD, I don't just model things in CAD, I actually do the designing in CAD. It's like I can finish a really cool version of the thing. Let's say I change the choil around or something. I can click print, and then I can walk away just for a little while and then have an actual physical model that I can hold. And it's not only like a quick way to do it, but it's exactly what you designed.
Yeah.
Because usually if you're going to sketch something and then prototype it like manually, unless you're putting quite a bit of time into it, it's going to be a little bit different. Like you do a cardboard, X-Acto knife situation and all that, but like it never feels like the physical thing you're holding is exactly what you imagined.
Right.
But with CAD, it is exactly what you did. You know what I mean? And it's like for me, it's the precision that just feels good.
Well, the precision, I still like, I hand sketch a lot. And when I'm not good at sketching. Like, so I'm not like doing like rendered, things with, proportion, it's like a top down view of a profile, but I've always seen them in 3D. And this is a really weird, like, this is the intersection of those two things, because I know from that little 2D sketch, ultimately exactly how that knife is going to like look, how I'm going to shape things, how it's going to feel. But now it's opening up a very different way of interacting with that.
Yeah.
And I think from a process standpoint, I think it will save time in certain areas, but it is going to, it's going to increase time in others. After I finished the Keon, I sent Maddie a message and I was like, this is going to be a problem. I was like, we have to figure out how to integrate this with my schedule, because it's all I want to do. It is sticky.
Oh yeah, it is.
Right? Do you have that? Like,
oh yeah.
Like I was literally, I was losing track of time. I forgot to eat a couple days. Like, and I'd look and I'd be like, wait, what? It's 8:00 at night.
Yep. It's like playing a video game.
Dude, it's like playing a video game.
Yeah. There's a dopamine
But
thing going on
a
there for sure.
it's like a creative problem solving video game,
Yep.
which for my brain is like about the best thing I can imagine for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such early days. Like I've done four projects through. I'm finishing the fourth one right now, which is actually I went back and redid the strafe, but like drew it from scratch. So like brought it in, had like one that I just use as like an origin sketch, but then redrew everything. And my time from like the first model to this model is so drastically different.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I'm still using the video. So I basically like pull the videos up, and what I'm doing is at this point, I try to make it through as much of the model without referencing. And then if I get stuck, I just go reference.
Mm-hmm.
I could do a fixed blade completely free of the videos at this point.
That's awesome, dude. That's huge.
Like I know that, right? I would probably struggle in a few areas, but the last model I did, I would say like 90% I didn't reference anything.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
so this is great. Just, as people are trying to learn specific skills as it relates to an industry, and having taken courses, like and maybe this is not wrong. Like if you have a high level of, if you can get a class and you can go learn SolidWorks or you can learn Fusion 360, like you're going to be so far ahead of the game because you'll come out like understanding constraints. For me, learning the software as it relates to the product is a huge time savings, right? Because you just are able to. It's a microcosm. And we're not everything we're doing is like linear. We have some there's some weird processes that happen when you're making a knife.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and there are elements of the knife that, I mean, in CAD, it's one of those powerful tools that basically everything you can do in CAD, you can do like about 5 to 10 different ways and get the same result.
Yep.
And so I tried to distill it down to where it's like, in my experience, these are the ways that are the most robust and the most comparable to physical manufacturing.
Right.
And basically everything I did, I was like, there's like 5 other ways, but I'm going to teach the way that I have kind of, like I said, distilled down to being the way I do it.
Right. And that specifically around making things. Like I remember when I first started learning Rhino, I did something very similar, which was I went to UNM and I basically found one of their instructional techs and I was just like, hey, I will pay you $25 an hour to tutor me in Rhino. And he went for it. And one of the first things that he said as we were drawing, he was like, oh, this is cool. He's like, you're thinking about this like you're going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, a lot of the students that we see come through, they've never made anything. So the things that they designed, a lot of them are not really producible from a manufacturing standpoint. And he's like, they have to learn how to make and how something is made without ever having made something.
Yeah.
So this is a similar thing. You're learning the software as it relates to actual production, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, when you have the tools and the shop in front of you, and you're the one that's going to do that work, and you're also the one designing it, it changes everything. Because it's like you're like, I could use an 1/8 inch end mill right here, but that means another tool and another tool change just for that one little op. That means managing tool life on that little guy. If I could just bump that radius by 10 thou, I could go and use this 3/16 that I already have in there. You know what I mean? Like these are decisions. And that's why if you've ever had a knife made, like if you're a designer listening to this and you send it out to some other factory and they seem to have changed like weird things that seem like they don't make sense. Like why would you make the choil that shape, or why would you do that to the jimping? It's probably because of they're trying to laminate it with their existing processes. And like, I just really think understanding who you're selling the design to, or whether it's you making it, what your tools are, like that comes first before CAD. And
Definitely.
I think having all of those constraints laid out and understanding them before you actually design anything is important, because if you design it and then you filter it through all those constraints, you may depart from the ultimate goal that you originally set out, because oftentimes it's like, well, if I'd have known that the jimping couldn't be that way,
Right.
I probably wouldn't have had jimping, or I probably would have done it. I would have done fewer of them, or I would have moved them, or the
Right.
same with the choil. So it's like, have the constraints, and it's aggravating. And I think that's where you get to designers that are just beginning. It's aggravating to design with constraints,
Right.
because you'll sit there and just think like, this lock insert is weird because the screws that are off the shelf are too long,
Right.
blah blah blah, and it's like, this sucks, I really want it to be this way. But you really have to like have the discipline to do that. And yeah, it makes it way easier though after the design's done, that's for sure.
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, I think one of the areas it's going to have most effect is probably with factory collaborations for me. Because like early on in factory collaborations, like it's really common to send a physical prototype.
Mm-hmm.
But and I would say that overall, this is probably a fairly universal experience. Like you're different, right? Like you started submitting CAD early on.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that will actually happen more and more and more now. But for a long time, you would have knives on your table and a company would come talk to you and a knife would go into production.
Yeah.
Right. I've been in like a middle ground for a long time, because a lot of the things I'm designing, I don't actually have the time to build customs of. But my skill set was not at a point where I could do essentially something that was as detailed as a physical model. This now changes that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it streamlines my design process, but also yields a much better end result for the companies that I'm working with.
Yeah, and on the flip side of what I just said earlier, there's the constraints of manufacturing that I was speaking of as like kind of negatively impacting your design work, but there's constraints that a custom shop has that a manufacturer does
Yeah.
not. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're always bound by making physical handmade prototypes, you're going to miss out on some manufacturing potential that can be done in that environment that can't easily be done by hand.
Yeah.
And I think there's quite a few of those types of features. Like if you're going to do textured milling patterns, that
Yeah.
you're never going to pull that off with a hand file. I mean, I guess you could theoretically, but there's just so much more. Especially, I've gone to the length of sometimes I'll like design something and I'll take it into cam and I'll start actually camming it.
Yeah.
Because in cam is where you can control a lot of things like texture and like
Yeah.
step overs and patterns. And I've even submitted that as well as the model to be like, this is how I want it programmed.
Yeah.
And it's just so powerful.
Yeah. And I think that's like where my head is at. Cause I tried to model some textures and I will continue doing that. But at this point I'm just not quick enough and I'm struggling with that aspect of it. That could actually be a really cool add-on is like, here's a basic primer on how to create textures on a 3D surface.
Yeah.
Right. But I think I'll go the cam route. Dude, it really is. It's been really good. I don't know, the end of the year, like I know we're going to do like an end of the year pod, but there's a few things that have like really come into focus recently, which was, I think I've always waited for like good times to do things, or like big blocks of time. And starting a couple months ago, I just realized I was like, I can't do this. And so I just started doing every days. And what's crazy to me is that I've actually been able to increase the amount of activities that I do every single day and somehow not have it negatively affect my like overall output. I think what it means is, I think that at least in my case, there was probably like a lot of slack in my overall like time that was just being occupied.
Mm-hmm.
But by putting these blocks of like an hour or 30 minutes or, 2 hour, 10 minutes, whatever it is, the slack is gone, but like everything else stays. So like the important things stay. The slack goes away, and now you're getting like real value out of that, like essentially lost time.
Mhm.
That might have been like time like staring at my phone. I started doing like, oh, I'm gonna put my phone on airplane mode 90 minutes out of the day.
Yeah.
Recently I've just been doing 3 hours.
Yeah.
With ADHD, if I look at my phone, there's a very strong chance that that's going to cross link and I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. If I gain 3 hours without that potential, that's insane.
Yeah.
And so like the CAD thing, I don't know, it's just weird. It's like all of these like micro efficiencies somehow tied into this. And then now it feels like just like 100% improvement. It's wild.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome.
So I know that's a little bit of the excitement around the program. Like I said, you're a very good teacher.
Thanks.
And so going into it, like I didn't, it's not like I had like doubts around like what you were teaching, but I was like, all right, I've already like been tutoring with you. Dude, if we had never tutored, I could be at where I'm at now based on the program or, on the course. But the ability to literally just watch, mimic, rewind is like worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, I think because I tutored you, and I also actually at the same time tutored a few other people, and it occurred to me so quickly that it was like, this is better not live.
Yeah,
it's better if it's recorded and it's and you can backstep and you can
100%.
rewatch, because it's like many things, it's like it only takes like a sentence to get someone to understand it.
Yeah.
But then it takes them hours to actually practice that and be effective with it. So it's like if someone's paying me for like tutoring time, it's like within the first 5 minutes, I can have them on a track,
right,
where they could spend the rest of the 2 hours or whatever, like
just
totally consumed with that first paragraph of information that I gave them. And so it's like, it just seemed the CAD course after those tutoring sessions really started to seem like a good idea. And it just took me, a year to actually do it. But I still want to add to it.
Yep.
That not necessarily new course. I mean, to the existing course in the existing model, I have other ideas to add to it. I want it to be a continual process, but yeah.
There's definitely like, I think we had talked about that. There's a few things that I would love to see. I'd love to see a little bit of is it surface modeling or solid modeling?
Surface modeling is what I didn't touch.
Yeah. I'd love to see surface modeling. I do think that like textures, just from the standpoint of a process, like you can I can definitely figure it out based on what is in the course already. But I have a feeling there's a way that you would lay it out that could shave a lot of frustration off it. And then like technical drawings, like how you go about actually creating a drawing set would be like a dimension drawing would be really cool. And then past that, I do really think there is a lot of value in CAM and like fixturing from a conceptual standpoint.
Yeah. I'd love to continue to pump more into it. Also, I did just post a YouTube video for the first time in a long time.
Nice.
like a normal YouTube video on my channel this week. So that felt good. I got to do more of those YouTube videos. That's another thing.
What was this one on?
It's not like instructional. It's more of vlog style. And that new knife that I am making, that I have officially announced to be called the Lost Trail. Ooh. This one being the 5-inch Lost Trail. So it's LT5.
LT5.
And I did a video on building the fixture and machining the first ones for the tang off of that fixture. So that was fun.
Nice. How's that? You want to pivot? You want to talk about the LT5?
Oh, we can.
A little bit?
Sure can.
How's it going?
Really good so far. In the last episode, I touched on laser versus water jet. And I basically came to the conclusion that most people do is that there's a reason everyone uses water jet. Laser, if you're big enough, if you're like Benchmade, you almost have to use laser, and then you have to try to mitigate the problems as much as possible, because there is a point where the scalability of water jet just runs out. And
Right.
it's ridiculously slow. If you've never watched a water jet run, they are absolutely glacial in their like pace of cutting parts. And so if
I
you're,
mean, it is relative because like we're thinking
yeah,
like, you can water jet or you can bandsaw,
yeah, right. Yeah. I
right?
mean, compared to truly handmade for sure. But I mean,
Or
we're
even milling.
talking,
Like if you're like take a coupon, mill it out versus have it water jet to go to mill,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I get what you're saying, like
But as far as
slow
like,
in terms.
if you're trying to do like like X thousand number of parts a
Yeah, yeah,
month,
yeah.
like you just, basically what I'm saying is like water jet is better for knives.
Yeah.
But the reason people are lasering is you eventually get to where they can't keep up. Like it's just not
Right.
possible. And what I got to in that video is like, yes, you can mill through that hardened perimeter that's a result of the laser, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be a big problem. But anytime you're introducing extremely irregular heat to a
Yeah.
thin, flat part, you're like asking for big trouble. And I
Yeah.
did get warpage, and it
Ooh.
was strange warpage. It wasn't like your conventional style where like the whole part is warping. It's
It's like
like
potato chip along an edge.
it would be like one spot where you could
Yeah.
just see where it was like a little extra color from heat, and the tip would just be like deflected right there. And anything that shows me that there's going to be warpage coming down the road, I'm going to just avoid that like the plague, dude, because warpage is like big trouble in production. I've seen it like really tear down a lot of projects in the past. It hasn't been a huge problem for me personally, but it can be straightened sometimes. It can be dealt with, but
Yeah, but you're increasing
it's,
you're fixing problems instead of doing work.
yeah, exactly. So it's not worth it. I'm going to pay twice as much money to water jet,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's all going to get machined, and it's going to be the same end product anyway, but I'm going to go the safe route.
Yeah.
I think if I owned a laser, which probably will never happen because they're ridiculous.
We can touch on that in a minute.
Yeah, true. But if I owned a laser, I might have a little bit more confidence, because there are ways to manage heat. But the
Right.
problem is, in a production shop, if you deliver a sheet of steel,
Right.
they want to just cut it and then
Yeah.
get on to the next thing, because
Yeah.
it's $1 million laser and they want to keep cutting.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were to cut like a part and then dwell, and then cut like a part and then dwell, and then cut like a row,
Yeah.
there's ways that you could manage the heat. But
Yeah.
if you're trying to work with a shop that's trying to make money, they're just not going to really
They're
accommodate
making
that.
parts for bumpers,
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, that's an interesting point, because if you have the right shop or the right, person that you're working with, a lot of those problems could probably be solved.
Yeah.
But it's specific. And I mean, that's like, why are there so many water jet companies that like popped up kind of around the knife industry?
Yeah.
And then, at a point, like initially you go to a water jet place, people were having water jet parts cut and they were running into problems because they weren't familiar with knives and the things that we need and the problem points that the pain points that we run into. Now it's like a known quantity. The places that run water jet for knife makers know what knife makers need.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't exist with laser as much, I don't think.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I actually just found a water jet place in Bend.
Cool.
So I'm gonna go check them out. Because I'm still not doing that. Like a lot of the stuff that I make, like I'll cut the whole blank on the CNC. So plan with this, like back to the CAD stuff, is essentially using this process to update all of my manufacturing processes. So just moving into like, some water jet, new fixturing. It's very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah,
I'm curious about the laser. Like I thought the laser, maybe as you were talking about it, for SciPop blanks might actually be a good option.
Oh yeah, it would definitely. If you're not dealing with a material that's like thermally unstable, like titanium, aluminum, brass.
Titanium I am, and that's the thing. It's like, I guess, maybe and maybe not. I don't know. It's like worth having a sheet done sometime to see.
Yeah, and the parts are so small and they're thick relative to their size, so they're not going to probably.
The only thing that I could see as a problem is like edge hardening. So that's still a question.
Yeah, it is.
Have you machined yet?
Yeah.
Was that because we talked about that?
Yeah, I machined. So yeah, I had them laser cut, and I'll drop the bomb on here. I already said it on YouTube. It's A2 tool steel.
Yes.
And A in A2 originally stood for air, which means
Yep.
it quenches via air,
Yep.
which is about the worst case scenario for laser cutting
Yeah.
because you're literally heating it and air quenching it. It's like
Yeah.
the steel that would be designed to harden in that condition. And
Right.
so,
Did you think about that beforehand?
yeah, I
Kind
thought about it, but I was like, the value of the price difference is so enormous that it was like
Right.
had to try it. And so they came back. I touched it on the belt sander because there was a couple that had like a little bit of a slag area, and I just touched that on the belt sander to see, like, you can immediately tell how hard it is usually
Yeah.
when you do that, and it was like, whoa, that's hard. That's like
It's hard.
60 Rockwell. And so I was like, this is gonna be interesting. So I was nervous about that, but I put it on the fixture, and it just didn't care.
Didn't care, man. That's the thing.
And I after watching them run, I'm like, I'm not concerned about the hardness of the edge.
Okay.
But that's because it's tool steel, and tool steel is designed to be milled hard.
Right.
So A2 does get harder theoretically because it's an air hardening steel.
Yeah.
But just if you've ever hard milled like a high alloy stainless, like a MagnaCut, a powdered metal steel, hard milling that stuff is way harder to mill than like a carbon steel or like a
Right.
conventional old school stainless. So it's like, if the whole thing was hard, it would probably still machine fine.
Right.
You know what I mean? It'd be a little different feeds and speeds, but I even thought about doing that. I even thought about just having them laser cut, having the whole thing hardened, and then just mill them.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it just machines so well.
Huh.
But which
I wonder
still
if that
isn't.
would-
I still would consider that, actually. I'm still
I wonder if that would
pondering
cut
that.
down on warping.
Well, I'm not doing bevels, so it doesn't. There's not a huge difference between the water jet version and the machine
So
version.
right, the warping is coming. Okay. Right.
But
Okay. Out of order.
But I mean, it would be more dimensionally sound
Yeah.
because you can get expansion and contraction during
Right.
heat treat. So if I ever had problems with that, like, there are makers, HMC Manufacturing, he has a cool podcast over there. What's it called? Sharpened Perspectives.
Yep.
Those guys, or him particularly, he hard mills like everything, dude.
Right.
Is it pretty cool? And
That like, as I'm moving into this process, I think this is like an area where you and I differ, right?
mhm,
Only because of like I have I have a preconceived notion around heat treating and warping,
mhm,
and I'm scared. So it's like in my brain, I'm like, oh, it makes more sense to heat treat a blank and then mill the blank. And at this point, I heat treat a blank and then grind a blank. So it's like
mhm.
I know the results you're getting, and I'm like, I guess maybe it's just self-doubt of like, I don't know that I can get the same results. Hard milling makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try both.
Yeah. Yeah. If you watch Aaron Goff,
Yeah.
Goff Customs on YouTube, he literally takes D2 tool steel in a coupon. It's like 10 inches long, 1/4 inch thick, hardens it as a coupon, as a rectangle,
Right.
then hard mills the entire thing, including the bevel.
Including
And
profile.
yeah, profile, bevel,
Yeah.
pocketing, holes, drilling, everything is all hard from a coupon.
I wonder why he does
And
that versus getting a water jet blank.
dimensional stability is what he was talking about, at least in one of the videos I watched. Because if you're, at least the way it made it sound, the way he talked about it, is that if you're going to hard mill it to try to get the dimensional precision, you might as well just do a coupon because it's not that big a difference from doing water jet. I don't know. I guess I might be putting words in his mouth, but might have to watch that video again.
Maybe I'll have to watch it too.
That's
Yeah.
just a testament to how easily tool steel
Right.
hard machines, because
Right.
he is taking it like over 60 Rockwell. But in the case of MagnaCut, if you had MagnaCut at 63 Rockwell
Yeah.
and
No
you're
doubt.
trying to hard mill it like that, you're going to have a very bad time. And
Yeah.
I've tried it. It's rough on tools. And so it does come down to steel choice big time on hard milling. AEBL hard mills like butter.
I love AEBL.
It's pretty cool stuff.
I'm
likes
so
to warp.
excited. Dude, all I want to do, like right now, we're in this pod. All I'm thinking about is jumping back into Fusion right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let it run for a while because like this is the beauty of a hyper focus. Man, there's so many things. But that AEBL, I've got a knife that I want to do AEBL with.
Nice.
So good.
I'm one little side note. I'm machining, so I ended up doing one sheet in laser
Okay.
Decided I want to go water jet, delivered all the rest of the steel to water jet. It's done. I'm getting it after this call. I'm going to actually run in there and get it. So tomorrow I'll be machining the LT5s, the first batch, and I want to change something. So I've been interpolating all my 1/4-inch bolt holes, like for my
Okay.
hardware. And interpolating just means like a smaller tool doing a circle,
Right.
as opposed to drilling it or reaming it. And I love that because you can comp the diameter really quickly and easily with either cutter comp or just changing like stock to leave in Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's less precise, obviously, because you're not getting
Right.
as round of a hole.
You still have an entry and exit.
You still have an entry, and then you're getting also, like, as the tool wears, you're having to comp it. It's a more manual process to like
Right.
achieve a certain dimension. And I want this to be a less manual process on this new knife. So I ordered a drill that is 0.252 diameter. So it's
Okay.
like not an actual 1/4 inch, it's 2 thou over, because I need a 0.252 hole. So I'm trying to replace interpolation with just carbide drilling alone.
Okay.
And I'm a little bit worried about it, but I just want to throw it as like a technical thing I'm working on. I want to see tomorrow how that goes.
Is there a reason? I guess on a fixed blade, it's like not as critical. Is there like a reason you wouldn't go to a reamer?
So
like drill and ream?
So drill and ream is obviously peak. That's like
Yeah.
the best possible hole making that you can do.
Yeah.
I wanted to try the drill alone first because I heard through some grapevines that there are some knife manufacturers that have found it reliable enough for fixed blades to just drill.
Yeah. I believe that.
And
the
it's
right drill, like, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to try. I really want it to just drill. And then if it doesn't work, then I have to go drill reamer.
Right.
But it's just another.
But you're already getting the accuracy you need out of interpolating, right?
Somewhat.
Okay.
It's floating around a little bit. It's not out of control. But the thing that I'm going to have to do is all of these LT5s are going to get Cerakote. And Cerakote has a thickness. And I don't want to be like pressing dowels through to like get them to like fit, because the Cerakote's going to make that hole be tighter. And the problem is I need to decide, like, okay, that hole is going to be 0.252, and I have a go no go gauge that I'm going to make sure I control it within a certain range. And I need to know, okay, if they're coming back from Cerakote too tight, what is the nominal value that I already started with, so that I can then go to a different value. Whereas with the interpolation, we're not getting like a numerical value that I can trust. It's like floating too much.
Sure.
But if it's a stone wash blade, it really doesn't matter that much. And they're all shadow box knives, so like a 1 thou float doesn't matter. But this one being a Cerakoted knife with the handles matching the perimeter of the tang, I'm like upping the game on the tightness of the tolerance on that hole.
Well, and that right there, that one reason, the fact that the scales match the tang, completely changes. That brings up like an interesting point, which is like your processes that you have moving into different products. There's almost always some kind of issue.
Yeah.
You know,
and to be honest, I always wanted to do this, but what happened is when I make a product, like the very first time, I prefer to interpolate everything, because if it's like not quite right, I can just type on the keyboard and it changes instantly to whatever I want.
Right.
And that's good for like product development.
Yeah.
But then when you go into production, that's a very slow manual way to do it. But like if you were trying to drill and ream and you weren't sure what diameter tolerance you were chasing, you'd have to order like $200 worth of reamers in like 1 or 5/10 increments or whatever.
Right.
So it's better to just interpolate in the beginning. And I just kept doing that for like 2 years. Yeah. So it's like, now that I know the dimension, I need to actually do it the right way. So
yeah. Nice. That's a little upgrade.
Yeah. Yeah. So tomorrow, that's what I'll be diving into: go no go gauges and carbide drills instead of interpolation. And
do you have a set of go no go gauges?
I ordered a bunch of pins, a bunch of gauge pins that are 5/10 increments all around the 250 range. I've actually started a 3D print. It's going right now, of a little like gauge pin holder. And I ordered like the go no go collet handles that you can put those pins in.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm trying to get set up with that.
Dude, my relationship with my 3D printer just got so much better. Um, it's so funny, man. I was thinking about tools and like the amount of tools that I've bought over the year, like the forging stuff. Like I have a, Anyang power hammer and a press, and I've never really used them. I've like played around with them. Recently, I've like really come to a lot of peace with that process because I realize that like I like to learn. I also need I need dopamine kind of things to look forward to. But I also just enjoy having the tools. I was talking with a friend yesterday about motorcycles, and he's like, I don't know. He's like, I haven't been riding much. And like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's like worth it to keep this bike. And it's like, but he loves mechanical things. He has car projects. He has bikes. And I was like, if you never rode that bike again, could you afford it? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, do you really like that bike? And he's like, yeah. Like you are getting value from just what you walk out into your garage and you like the Triumph that you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of how I've been with tools, but I used to be really hard on myself about it. But what I realized like with a process like this is if I was learning Fusion right now, I knew that I wanted to do it and I knew that I wanted to 3D print. But if I just went through this process, I would then have to also be putting together my 3D printers and my laser cutters. I already did that. I didn't do it in a logical order, and that's okay. There's a lot of things I think that like makers, creatives, maybe this is just like humans in general. Like we're so focused on doing things in the right order all the time, like an order that makes sense. Like I don't know, some of it, I don't think it matters.
Yeah. Speaking of dopamine pursuit, there's something about 3D printing because once you have CAD ability and a 3D printer, it's like the whole world looks like it's just waiting for 3D printed things to be in it at that point. Dude. You know what I mean? Like we'll be in the kitchen and I'll be like, man, we have one extra knife and our knife block is full. Yeah. It's like, what if I 3D print? Like immediately you just start thinking.
I've been doing it. That's been the other part of the everydays.
Yeah.
So far, the best things. Best things. We bought a new microwave, dude. Meanwhile, I was cooking something and my microwave caught on fire.
No kidding.
I have no idea what happened. Damn. I looked and I just see like out of the right hand side, I see a flame just caught on. I was just happened to be standing there.
Jeez.
So got a new microwave. The opening mechanism.
Were you cooking a bag of forks or?
I just instantly thought, man, I was like one of the kids put metal in there. No. Bag of forks. Oh man. Oh. So we get a new microwave. It doesn't have a button. You have to pull the door. The problem is it's not like hard mounted. So when you pull the door, the microwave moves.
Yeah.
For my brain, this is a problem. Like it'll ruin my experience every time I use the microwave.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, how do I solve this? And I was like, all right, I'm going to go print a 3D print a thumb rest. So now when you go to open the door, you have like a bar that you put your thumb on and push.
Yeah.
So that was like win one. And then Bo came out to the shop yesterday to hang out. And he was like, can we make something? I was like, absolutely. I was like, what do you want to make? He's like, a lightning bolt. And I was like, okay. He's like, Harry Potter lightning bolt. So we 3D printed. I sent you the rendering of it. Just like a little 3D printed lightning bolt necklace.
Yeah, it was cool.
But I made him do the work. And he's like, he doesn't have a computer yet. Doesn't have like the dexterity to like run a mouse. So we just used it as like, okay, put your hands here, like select this line. Okay, click. So I just had him click through. And then just little things like, okay, we're going to take our memory card and we're going to put it in the 3D printer. All right, here's how we set up the 3D printer. He's 6. And I was like, as I was doing it, I was like, this is amazing because if I keep doing this with him, he could be like 9 years old and have like a pretty good understanding of CAD. That is crazy to me.
I 100% agree. And I have to say, one of my goals with our kids is like, a lot of kids get the gamer bug. I had it.
Yeah.
And
I had it too.
I hope I can get my kids to trigger that gaming like addiction to like 3D printing and CAD.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen because I can't like project my desires on them and all that, but it's
might
close
be a
enough
crossover.
to gaming.
Like I see it. I see it with as around parenting right now. He's interested in Harry Potter.
Mhm.
That's what he likes. Tying this into Harry Potter was the thing that made him sit there with me for 30
Yeah.
minutes. And then he just sat and watched the 3D printer. And the reality of it is, he's going to sit and watch a 15-minute print. He's being quiet. He's focusing. He's like
Mhm.
attention on something that is like actually really peaceful. Just
Yeah.
zzz, 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 zzz. There is no bombastic like dopamine
It's not
surge.
overstimulation
It's
or
not
anything.
overstimulation. Dude, and it was amazing. He came back and he's like, can I make one of these for Cal, his best friend? I was like, absolutely. And then for Christmas this year, I'm gonna do a bunch of little puzzles for the family, like photo puzzles. So you just like take a photo, laser cut it, throw it in a box. But we built him one last week, and it's just I'm enjoying those interactions so much. It's like a way to like kind of like meet them at their level, but around something that I'm capable of doing too. So
3D printing is wonderful, dude.
I can't wait.
It.
I got so many projects. What is the best thing non-knife related that you've 3D printed?
Ooh, our front gate to our house, I 3D printed like 2.5 years ago, and I thought for sure it would just fall apart. And it was because the gate is in between like a post that holds up like the roof of the house, like the extended part of the roof, and then the gate's in between. And there's no latch that really exists that is like fits that tiny margin that we needed. And so I just designed and 3D printed one that like screwed into the wall of the house.
Yeah.
And it's been there ever since. And like it's super intuitive. Everybody goes and they grab it, they unlock it. It auto shuts like when you push it, and I'm just like super happy with it.
What a time in manufacturing. I have this like very vivid memory of the eyeball maker. This is super random. The eyeball maker from Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
He's like in like a frozen shop, but like just all this like weird machinery and stuff around. 3D printing feels like that to me. I remember I had a friend who worked at Sandia National Labs, and this would be 20 plus years ago. And I remember him bringing me a sintered, a titanium sintered 3D print. And he's like, a lab in Germany sent us this file and we printed this in metal. Yeah. And it's like, it's a bunch of like college age, like super nerd engineers and machinists, and like everybody's head just like exploded.
Yeah.
They're like, what? It's
incredible,
mind blowing. And now you're like, oh, $1,000 or $200, and you basically like can be like a little micro hardware store.
Yeah.
Like it's so, and they're so fun. The things that you're able, like the stakes, like, okay, I can make a drawer pull. I can machine it. I can go down. I can cut some stock. I can turn it on my lathe. It's a time commitment. With the ability to like solid model it, you just instantly making tool bases, storage. Like I've got some plans for stuff that I'm gonna print for my 4-wheel camper. And now it's like I'm enjoying it more than finding something that I like, because I'm like, oh, I like this and I made it. It's really cool, satisfying.
It fits a very specific application too. It's like you're trying to interface two things that otherwise shouldn't do that. And and the other thing is like this LT5. I haven't shown a picture of the scales.
Ooh, I haven't. Yeah,
I have been 3D printing these scales over and over and over and over, and I've been dating them so that I have like this history catalog. I've got like all these different dates laying all over the place, because what I found real quick is I would 3D print one, 3D print the next, and I'd want to backtrack one step, and without 3D printing again, I could just have it dated. And so I have like a milk crate just like filling up with handles for this thing. And so I 3D printed the whole tang and the scales until I was basically close enough, 99 percentile, started running the tangs through production, but I'm still 3D printing a set of scales like a couple times a week. Dude. So that by the time I have to make the scales, I've got like 10 extra iterations, even though the tangs are already in production, because it just might as well use that extra time.
This is what I mean about like the shift to being a better designer. right? Exploration and learning are like so critical. Maybe not even learning. I mean, it is, but not in like, not, I don't mean learning in like the traditional sense of like learning. It's like as you're working through a model, right? Like I'm working through this knife. I am learning this knife on a physical level and conceptual level. Like when I first see it, you're like, oh, I have this concept for a knife. You draw it. You're like, that's cool. And I print it and I'm like instantly like, oh, that's like this. The first one that I ran into was like the choil radius was, or the finger choil radius was too small. I was like, okay, straight back to the 3D print. You're learning what that model needs, but you're also seeing it and you're able to like make small tweaks and like, oh, maybe if I change that line, it's exploration. It's better design.
And I feel like if you're a custom maker, like absolutely handmade custom, you are doing those iterations as you're making them because it's like handmade.
Yes.
But when you actually turn over into production, you don't really have the affordance of like changing every single one.
Right.
And so that's where I'm like, I want at least like 10 to 15 iterations done before I even if I'm happy with the first one, like I'm going to keep doing it and hold it and watch a movie with my wife and sit there and hold it. Because like, just like a custom maker, like they all have done this and understand is like after 2 years of making it, you notice something about that backspacer that started to bother you. You notice something. So it's like, I try to compress the noticing of details like into a couple months of leading up to launching a knife. And just like, there's no way to do it other than 3D printing. You know what I mean?
Not with this, man, the dimensional capability, the fact that you're able to get your contours, get your chamfers, truly see it. Like I see a lot of times, like you print things in one color. Like I'm just doing it in two colors because it's like my brain wants to see the contrast of it. And I'm like, man, that is so cool. Like, have you thought about doing any 3D printed products?
I have.
Is there anything that you want to make without like saying what it is?
It's nothing's like jumped to the forefront. But it's crossed my mind for sure. I know there's makers out there that are doing 3D printed packaging.
Right. 3D printed packaging. I've thought about that.
It's pretty cool.
I struggle with packaging because for me, packaging is part of the design. Like, again, like I'm like an Apple guy and I love opening the packaging, but I also struggle with the waste around packaging. So like SciPop has really nice packaging, but I look and I'm like, man, it's got like, foam cutouts in it and it's a box. Where my head has been at with packaging is like, what would someone get that they would keep for
they won't throw it away.
But like not keep it as packaging, like not like OCD, I need to keep this box forever. Like, oh, let me repurpose this box because it's cool. Like metal tins is something that I've been like looking towards for like small products.
Oh, totally.
Because you keep it or your kid will keep it. Or
a little thought that popped into my head. I don't know the eco-friendliness because I haven't read into it, but they make a support filament that's designed to be water soluble. So the whole intent is that if you 3D print something that's like this crazy figurine holding like a sword or something, the water soluble filament is printed like as a support and then it's melted away with just warm water. I wonder how eco-friendly that is. Because if you printed an entire packaging thing for like a SciPop, like a brick with the negative in it, with a little click-on lid, and it was designed totally to be made water soluble, so that I just don't know if that's like just a microplastic disaster. I would have to read about it.
Exactly, right. You don't know. That's great. I just wrote it down because dude, that's the thing. The options are so unlimited, and like, look, okay, so Winston has glow in the dark stars under his bunk bed. Bo wants glow in the dark stars. We can go buy glow in the dark stars. I can also just 3D print them. I actually don't use packaging. I don't know that that makes it more like ecologically friendly than the other.
I don't know.
But I do know that the act of making the stars with Bo and putting them on his ceiling is going to give him a different type of connection than just going to the store and buying them off Amazon or whatever.
It very certainly makes it feel less disposable too.
Exactly.
Because it's like, let's say 6 months later, you're going to move the bed to the other side of the room.
Right.
normal stars that you got at the dollar store, I throw those away.
Yeah.
But like with those, it's like, oh, those are neat. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like it's got your name on them. Like that's pretty cool, you know?
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay. 3D printed products. I keep trying to think about it, and I'm like, because I see stuff that other people are making and selling. I'm like, it's cool. I just haven't had one that I'm really attached to yet. But I like the idea. I love the idea of like a print farm.
Here's a thought.
Okay.
Imagine, so if you 3D print something, you can insert like an M0. I don't know what the actual G code is, but you can make the printer stop, and then you put something inside, and then it prints it to where it's like concealed.
Yeah.
And then if you made a water soluble box for like a Cypop or something,
fully
and the only
enclose
way
it
to get it out would be to like dilute it with water and like
mummified.
actually you had to dissolve it to get it out.
Yeah.
Like that could
be
kind of cool.
I don't know if you saw the beads I did with Pat Pruitt a while back. The packaging that he picked like a medicine, like a little medicine jar.
Yeah, I saw that.
But it click sealed. So to open it, you literally had to break the seal. I actually love the fact that I know there are some that are not going to be opened.
Yeah.
Because someone got it and is like, I can't open it. Like, because then it won't be this thing. And I just pristine. Love that. Yeah. Oh, I like that mummified product.
Yeah.
Like,
because you can get it where it's kind of like transparent, so you can still see it. Yeah.
Dude, that's so good.
With like the Burnley logo, like overlaid, like, that could be kind of cool. The problem I have, the reason I'm telling you this is like, I would do it, but I don't have any products that would fit.
That fit that. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like the dinosaur eggs that you can get for the kids, where it like comes with like a little tool and they can like pry it out. I wonder. Oh, that's like a fun gamified product idea where you're like, you buy the set and it comes with like, it comes with a titanium pry bar, but you actually have to like pick the casing away from like the other product.
Yeah.
It's like a pry bar and a bead or something.
Yeah. There's some fun to be had there. Some interesting
problem
stuff.
Is that there's too much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Just thinking about this, like as a last thing. So doing these dailies and like kind of letting the dailies roll into like deep dives. What I'm realizing is I know my focus will change. Like I'm getting a timeline of hyper focus on a subject, and it can range from like a week to probably like a few years, right? I'm starting to do it almost like a puzzle. So Fusion 360 right now is kind of the hyper focus, but it's also the main focus around learning. Like I knew this was the number one thing that I wanted to learn. When I get to a point with Fusion 360 where I don't feel like I am actively having to still learn, I'm just going to slide something else into that spot.
Yeah.
The consistency, I think coming into the end of the year, this stuff is like really clear and focused, but like consistency over long timelines is like where you are successful.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I don't know. It's fun. Thanks for the help with Fusion 360, dude. That I would not be where I am today without you and that course.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You want to wrap it?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Cool.
That was a good one.
We got wound up there towards the end.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. And if you guys are listening to this, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy holidays, all the good stuff.
We'll probably say that again.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know exactly when episodes are going to launch, and so I thought I'd just be preemptive.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for listening. If you want to support the pod, if you're getting some value out of this, check out our Patreon.
Yeah.
Leave us a review.
Yeah.
5-star would be preferable to 1-star.
Anything's
good.
5 is good.
5 is good. Just do that.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.
Peace.